I'm not sure what time it is anymore, but the clock on the wall says 3:12 a.m. The second hand jerks back and forth, unwilling to move forward, caught in some mechanical hiccup that almost sounds like counting tick, 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 like it's panicking, same as me. The monitors in front of me flicker with static, patterns of light that crawl up and down the cheap gray screens. They should be showing empty hallways. That's what I'd see any other night. Clean, fluorescent lit corridors. Desks, dark offices, the break room with a crumpled chip bag in the corner, normal, forgettable things. But all I see now is static and shadows, shapes wobbling in the interference that might be the building structure, or might be something walking, somewhere just out of frame. I stare at the monitor labeled North Hall. The image ripples, distorts, slides out of focus, then returns to the same looping stretch of carpet and closed doors. I want to believe it's a hardware glitch, but I can hear footsteps out there, wet, dragging footsteps getting closer, then circling away, always just far enough that I don't know if they're real. There's a reason I don't move. There's a reason I'm whispering, trying not to breathe, holding my phone in my sweaty hand and recording this, now, for you, or maybe just for myself if no one else ever sees it. Because I broke the rule once. For 10 minutes, maybe less. That's all it took to understand what was really happening on Christmas Eve. I'm not going to make that mistake again. They told me, years ago, every other night of the year, sure, you can call in sick, swap shifts, disappear for a weekend, and no one cares. The building will be fine. You can be late, you can be drunk, you can fall asleep with the monitors off. No one notices. But not tonight. Christmas Eve is the only shift I'm not allowed to skip. Not allowed. I know how that sounds. Like overkill. Like paranoia. But there's a reason. If you're watching this on Christmas Eve, just don't. Lock your doors. Go to bed early. There's a reason they don't let us leave. I can hear it again outside. Closer, it knows I'm here. I keep thinking about the rule, about why I stayed this year, about what happened the year I didn't. I should start at the beginning. Before I knew what the cameras don't show. My name isn't important. I'm whoever's left when the roster runs out. Night security at a half-abandoned corporate building squatting on the edge of a nameless industrial park. You know the place even if you don't. 3 stories of copy and paste cubicles, all-night humming HVAC, and a vending machine with snacks old enough to be considered artifacts. I've been here longer than I care to admit. Long enough that the stale coffee in the break room was mostly brewed by me. Long enough for the motion sensors to learn the rhythm of my aimless patrols, my footsteps the only heartbeat left at 2 a.m. Sometimes I think the lights sense when I'm looking at them, they flicker for attention or just out of boredom. The truth about night security work is that it's 90% nothing. Not peace and quiet. Nothing. But that kind of flabby silence you only get in places nobody loves. You listen to the clock's minute hand clawing its way down 12 and back again. You sweep the same tile, scroll through the same memes, sip the same chalky coffee until you start to wonder if you vanished. Would anyone notice before the next shift? But there's one night a year where boredom gets replaced by something closer to dread: Christmas Eve. Technically, it's the easiest shift. Nobody's in the building, management's all home with their families, half the tenants evacuated before noon. The security group chat fills with memes and wish lists, and suddenly everyone is your best friend, looking to trade Christmas Eve for literally any other night.
But here's where the job stops feeling harmless. No one ever jokes about the Christmas Eve shift in seriousness. Most guards don't make it 2 years before transferring out, finding something with better hours, or getting promoted sideways just to escape the holiday. Some make excuses. Most just stop showing up. Nobody tells you why. The real tip-off, for me, was when I realized it's the only time the emergency call tree gets rehearsed in November. The only shift where Marquez himself shows up an hour before to run diagnostics and check doors I don't have keys for. It's the one night you see people cross themselves or mutter little prayers as they head to their cars, whether they grew up believing or not. But yeah, let's be real, I didn't buy into any of that at first. My first Christmas Eve, I thought it was hazing. Christmas Eve arrived, and with it a layer of wet snow that made everything look cleaner than it deserved. The parking lot out front was a blank white slab, streetlights turning every falling flake into a moment of static. I didn't expect to see many cars. The company sent everyone home at noon, and most people hadn't bothered to turn the lights off around their desks. Tinsel sagged on every door, as if even the decorations were tired. I watched from the main entrance as the sunset melted everything gold, then slid away, and left the world with nothing but that sodium orange glow outside and the office fluorescence humming within. By 10:30 p.m., the only car in the lot was mine except for one battered sedan, dark, its windows filmed with ice. I figured it was a neighbor who'd parked and walked home, or maybe just one of the cleaning crew who forgot to move it. But there wasn't any cleanup scheduled, and when I stuck my head outside, the air smelled sharp, electrical, fake like the inside of the break room's ancient microwave. I tried not to think about the driver. Why would I? There was nothing in the rear view but snow. Inside, the whole building was overwarm, as if the heat had been left on max for weeks. It never gets hot in here, not even at noon on the 4th of July. But there, on December 24th, it felt thick and breathy, sweat prickling the back of my neck under the uniform. I slipped into the routine, walked the circuit, East Hall, North Stairwell, vending alcove, then back around. Everything normal if you squinted. The only noise was the overhead Christmas music, a playlist the office manager set to shuffle the Monday after Thanksgiving and never fixed. It was jingle bells melting into Deck the Halls at half speed, voices dragging, glitching into electronic hiccups every 30 seconds. The longer you listened, the more you could hear the edits, the silence between tracks, the little digital burps like coded messages to drive anyone mad. A little after midnight, I wandered past Suite 305 and had that prickly sensation that someone was behind the frosted glass. There wasn't, not really, but our motion detectors are too old to lie. They blinked red once, and the ancient control panel chirped. The problem was, they blinked in Suite 410, a room sealed for renovation. I checked the door, but the deadbolt was still in place, sealed with a numbered zip tie I'd signed myself. No footprints in the hall. I shrugged, figured the system was shorting out from the weather. Then, just past 1, I heard the elevator. Our elevator sounds like a thunderclap when there's no one to use it. It rumbled, groaned, opened its doors, waited. No one entered or left. No one had pressed a button. I checked the panel. Nobody had called for a ride to 3, but there it sat, its doors shuttering open onto a ghost-empty lobby. After a while, it gave up and hummed itself shut, returning to the ground floor like it had somewhere urgent to be. Later, the intercom crackled. It's got an old, yellowed button you have to press with 2 fingers, and it only goes between the security office and the conference room. Most nights I'd get nothing but static if I tried it. But at 2:13 a.m., I remember because that's when I always lose focus, I heard 3 notes of something like a carol, warbling and off-key, a child's voice slowed to molasses. I told myself I was imagining it. Maybe some YouTube playlist looping through my phone. Nothing really happened. Nothing visible, anyway. I could have left it at that. Just another boring Christmas Eve. Shut down the office at 5 a.m., head back home, forget it until the next year. That's exactly what I wanted. But the rules were there in messy black marker, and I wasn't curious, not really. At 10 to 3, I settled in the office, locked the door, checked the fire escape, set my radio onto the windowsill, positioned myself near the monitors. That was the rule. Stay in the office from 3 to 3:15. Simple enough. I let my eyes go soft, watched the feed for the janitor's access hallway, and waited for 15 minutes to crawl by. The power flickered at 3:07. Slumped lights and whirring fans, all in sync with my heartbeat. Every camera feed froze, jittered, reset. Then every single one flipped to the same empty hallway, a place I recognized but couldn't name. Outside Suite 407, down past the break room. All the lines at warped angles, a fisheye lens showing a corridor that felt just slightly wider, slightly longer than it ever should have been. That's when I noticed the figure, way down at the far end, behind a sick rectangle of blue light from an emergency exit sign. Tall, unmoving, just out of range for the resolution to catch a face. My hands hovered over the keyboard to change the view. When I did, the image snapped back to normal, and the figure vanished. Empty again, too fast for a human to move. At 3:10, swept up by nerves, I clicked my radio for a check-in, out of habit, a holdover from actual emergencies, when we'd have 2 guards on. Control to Adam. Anything to report? Adam was a guy we lost to graduation last spring. now working halfway across the country. But the radio crackled. Something hissed between bursts of static. Maybe just interference, maybe not. Most people get the job wrong. They think we're paid for the easy nights, paid to scroll our phones and drink cold coffee. That's not the truth. They don't pay us extra for overtime. They pay us for that 15 minutes when the building feels alive and the hallways stretch longer than they should. You'll see why. That was the year I followed the rules. It's funny how the second round of anything always feels less intimidating than the first. My second Christmas Eve shift didn't bring dread, it brought boredom, cynicism, that invincible feeling you get when you survive something weird because you got lucky the first time. I showed up with my coffee extra sweet, my headphones charged, ready to laugh at the ghost stories and keep one eye on the clock until sunrise. The rules from last year felt theatrical, like a dress code for a party that had already lost its fun. I rolled my eyes at the dry erase warnings, now scuffed, almost illegible. Stay in the office 3 to 3:15. No freight elevator after midnight. Don't respond to suite 407. Breaking the rules would be a hell of a lot more interesting than following them, I figured. December 24th crept by with the usual nothing. The same dead silence, though maybe the old decorations looked scrappier, a limp bough here, garland dulled with dust. Snow fell again, but less this time, flurries that punched the parking lot with gray. Even the music seemed to have given up, the speaker overhead wheezing through the last bars of Silent Night, like a strangled animal. I wasn't scared, just impatient. I killed time reading stories, people online trading, creepiest office overnight, tales, bitter, hollow, all of them missing something. I liked the feeling of superiority, that little rush that comes from knowing you're in on the prank. I'd been through the weirdness, seen the static and the figure, and nothing came of it. Nothing real anyway, just winter tricks and broken wires. Right a little after 3 a.m., I got bold. The minute hand inched past 12. I waited, half smiling, daring the world to change. The security system chirped, too loud in the hush. Alarm suite 407. That was the forbidden one, the spot on the board nobody talked about, the room you locked and forgot. The last time, I'd stayed in the office. This time, I stood, swung the door open, and walked out. The hallway was off. Not construction glitches, not lights burning out different. The decorations had shifted. The plastic wreath outside Human Resources, which I remembered as green and gold, was now drooping on the floor, its plastic berries crushed flat. The tinsel was twisted, bunched in clumps like metallic hair. And further down, in front of Suite 407's door, the fake snow from the lobby's welcome mat was scattered, melting into sticky puddles. The air felt colder, too, though I could feel heat roaring in from somewhere the vents overhead. Maybe, but the air tasted wrong. Oily thick. I hesitated, hand out for my radio, but I'd left it behind, too eager to prove a point. Rule-breaking looks brave until you realize there's no backup left. I followed the trail of fake snow to Suite 407. The door always kept locked, seal checked monthly was slightly open, swinging just enough to show darkness inside. Not a whisper of movement, not a sound. It was hotter in there, somehow, a blast of cloying warmth that stank of something heavy, mineral, like water left standing too long. The room was empty, or almost. No furniture except for a single chair placed in the center, facing the far corner. Like a kid had been sent there for punishment. The harsh glow from the exit sign in the hall cut across the threshold, slicing the shadows. I stared at the wet footprints on the scuffed linoleum, bare feet, too big for any shoes I'd seen, streaked with slush or so. There was no paperwork inside. No traces of the old renovation, no folders, no spilled stapler, nothing. But it felt occupied. The chair's wooden back had deep scratches gouged into it, like someone had gripped it from behind. There was a faint groove in the floor, as if something heavy had been pushed around the room and then dragged away. I stood staring long enough to wonder if I'd fallen asleep on my feet. Then I heard it clear as day right behind me, in a voice that snapped with cold. "You're not supposed to be out here." I turned. The hallway was empty. No footsteps, no shadow, no hint of where the voice could have come from. Just the sound of dripping as if the snow kept melting over and over from the same invisible shoes. My bravado disintegrated. Every muscle in my body turned to ice water. I bolted, stumbling back toward the office, heart striking my ribs as if it wanted out. The air in the hall thickened with every step, gravity pulling at my arms and legs like I was underwater. I could feel eyes pressing on me, their gaze like a pressure spot on the back of my neck. When I slammed the office door shut behind me, I locked it 3 times and dropped into my chair, sweat freezing on my skin. I twisted all the camera feeds to live, and my entire body snapped rigid with cold terror. Every monitor showed a slight lag, a 10-second delay. I was watching myself walk the halls, repeating every nervous glance, every gasp for breath. But there was more. Behind me, on the screen in every replay was a shape, half-formed, drifting in and out behind doors, always a few paces back. If I stopped, it stopped. If I moved, it followed. But in real time, there'd been nothing. I rewound in disbelief. No tricks of the light. There it was, a frame behind, always waiting, always catching up. That's when the rules stopped being superstition and started smelling of something much older, something to do with keeping things in their right places, not keeping employees safe. The rules weren't about protecting those inside the office. They were about making sure something else stayed put. Containment, not comfort. I didn't finish my shift. I kept the lights on and the door locked until sunup, then left without a word. After that, I tried to quit. I tried to quit before November even started. I crafted the perfect resignation letter, formal but not desperate, and marched it up to Marquez's dingy office, convinced I could finally get out. I told myself this was just another job, nothing more. I wasn't afraid, just done. The closer the calendar crept to Christmas, the more I wanted that feeling of clean escape. I handed Marquez my letter in a sealed envelope. He didn't even blink. I watched him slide a toothpick left and right in his mouth, never even pausing. "That's fine. Your last shift is December 23rd, he said, gaze fixed on a spreadsheet that probably hadn't been updated in 3 years. I relaxed. One breath in, relief sweet in my lungs. He lingered another second. And the 24th. The way he said it, you'd think it was company policy, a line item in my contract hidden somewhere in footnotes and dust. I started to protest, mouth opening with all my best arguments about PTO and fairness, but he cut me off with a look so dry it shriveled whatever anger I felt. "It's just how things are," he said. The conversation was over before it began. I tried to take it up with HR, but the system seemed to glitch every time I checked my status. The portal, which had always worked reliably, spit out an error whenever I tried to confirm my last day. Half the time, my name was still highlighted in red for December 24th, despite all my requests and confirmations. Even my direct supervisor's email responses came garbled, like lines of code interrupting boilerplate apologies. "We appreciate your service. Your schedule remains unchanged for critical operational needs." It felt like the building itself refused to let me go. I wasn't the first. The old-timers never lasted more than a year or two, but sometimes their names would pop up on old rosters scratched out, taped over, rewritten in different handwriting. There were always rumors, as old as the stains in the carpet. One story stuck with me. Another guard, some guy named Pete, tried to resign mid-winter years before. He was supposed to be replaced by a temp from another site, but the temp never showed. Security footage, someone once said, caught Pete standing outside just before 3:10 a.m. December 24th, razor wind billowing his coat, head tilted up to the highest row of offices. He never moved, not for the entire window. Didn't even flinch as the snow crusted on his shoulders. The police report said he was found in the parking lot around sunrise, standing upright, eyes wide open. He'd frozen to death, still facing the building. The night guard after him left a week later without turning in their badge. There's always someone on the roster for Christmas Eve whether they want to be or not. If someone tries to slip the net, the building just fills the gap, even if it means bending the rules or time itself. There are records in the file cabinet from decades ago, listing names I don't recognize, dates before the current building even existed. Paperwork yellowed at the edges with ink that runs when it rains. Sometimes, I wonder if the security office isn't older than the company itself. Like it's been waiting here, a fixture for whoever draws the short straw, no matter what logo hangs over the front desk. There's always someone scheduled, even if they don't work here anymore. But this year I think it's different. It's all coming around again. I can feel it in my ribs, that hard ache, as soon as the clock tips toward midnight. The building knows, or maybe it's just me, counting down the hours until the only rule that matters starts to twist the night into something new. I told myself this time would be different. I left the Christmas lights up around the security office, their cheap plastic bulbs bathing everything in red and green speckles. The little pretense of normalcy was supposed to help, but they only make the shadows deeper and stranger. Half a string shorted out just after 1 o'clock, and now the north wall flickers, sickly and inconsistent, casting lurching shapes that pulse with the vent fans. Everything else is worse. The cameras, which have always been stubborn, refuse to cooperate. I cycle through each one out of habit, desperate for distraction. But instead of empty hallways and neatly arranged desks, every screen is stuck on the same warped image. The lobby at a tilted angle, the sliding glass doors trembling in their frames. No matter how hard I try keyboard, mouse, even rebooting the feeds don't change. It's like the building wants me to see only this sliver of reality. Or maybe it's all there is now. Worst of all, at 2:46 a.m., I hear the unmistakable clunk of the lobby doors unlocking, then the telltale whoosh as they stutter open. No badge swipes, no entry code. They just unlock. I try to override the system from my end, but the controls lag, refreshing over and over, a spinning hourglass taunting my panic. A cold draft wafts in, bringing with it a sharp whiff of snow and something much older. One by one, the motion sensors alert a riot of red blinking dots popping up on my panel all at once. The building map, usually a grid of blue outlined rooms, erupts in alarms. East office, west stairs, archive hall, facilities. Too many to check, too fast to track. I can't keep up. The data is endless, and none of it makes sense. It's like the whole building is moving, all at once, waking up to something it's pretended not to notice. Then my phone buzzes, shaking just enough to make me jump. An internal extension flashes up on the ancient receiver, North Pole storage. I stare at it, half expecting it to vanish if I blink. Against everything good sense ever taught me, I pick up. Nothing but silence for a heartbeat. Then, softly, the sound of children humming the kind of low, distant hum you remember from memories that aren't yours, Christmas pageants and long-ago choir recitals fading into dust. The tune is just off enough to raise every hair on my arms. And then clear as my own thoughts, in my own voice, doubled and breathless, still distorted by a layer of static I hear. Don't let it see you. Static roars, then cuts out. The extension drops. The phone goes dead. I fumble for the security feeds, trying to get anything but that frozen lobby shot. At first, nothing changes. Then, with a grinding lurch, the parking lot camera snaps into focus. Stone silent, washed in the yellow flood from the streetlights. It should be empty, but it isn't. There are people out there, dozens, maybe more, standing scattered like tombstones in the snow. They're all facing the building, arms limp at their sides, unmoving. I can just make out the shapes. Some in office clothes, some in puffy winter coats, a few with no hats, no gloves, staring straight ahead, their faces white under the glare. They didn't walk in. They weren't there 10 minutes ago, when I checked on a cigarette break. I try to zoom in, but the feed resolves only so much. No one's blinking. Not a breath plumes in the chill. They're like mannequins, waiting for the next cue, or a congregation at a funeral where no one knows the words. I look for my car. For a second, I can't pick it out among the rows, but then I spot it in the corner of the frame. The driver's side door is closed, but streaked with frost that forms shapes faces, maybe, or just tricks of the glass pressed against it from the outside. The decorations still flicker overhead. A framed flyer from last year's holiday potluck curls in the heat vent's breath, the cartoon Santa's face warped by a slow drip of condensation. Somewhere behind the humming, I hear the elevator rumble, stopping at every floor, opening and closing, with no one inside. I feel the urge to move, but the other rule catches up with me. Stay in the office. Don't respond. Don't be curious. My adrenaline's roaring, but my limbs feel glued to the chair. The clock clicks. The air stirs behind my neck. That sick, cyclical dread crests in my chest. Something is walking, and it's not on any camera this time. 3:12 a.m. The time I had last year. It's always those 15 minutes after 3, the window nobody talks about without lowering their voice, the core of every rumor, the space where all the rules hang like icicles ready to drop. As the second hand clicks past 3 o'clock, the lights in the entire building snap off so fast it actually makes me flinch. All at once, Every window turns to a mirror, and for a moment I see my own silhouette, huddled small over the monitors, lit only by the red emergency bulb in the ceiling above me. The security office is plunged into blood-hued gloom. Everything outside this one room is pure blankness, as if the world's abandoned the idea of light entirely. The monitors flick back to life, somehow feeding off their own power supply, and for once they seem almost reliable. But now the cameras have turned inward. Instead of empty corridors or the parking lot of staring figures, they're showing rooms inside the kitchenette, the supply closet, the empty boardroom. Places I know, places I've just left. And in every one of those silent rooms, something moves. Not a person, not any shape I recognize or want to name. A mass of wrongness gliding through partitions as if the walls weren't there at all. Sometimes it catches just at the corner of a camera's eye, a flicker of too many joints, an outline that snags on holiday lights or leaves the digital feed rippling behind it. I realize, watching, that it's working its way through every empty room but the one I'm in. It's avoiding me, circling, pacing a pattern, a hunt, but not for me directly. More like it's searching for something out of place. My hand hovers over the phone. I want to call someone, anyone, but the dial pad's gone dark, red LEDs winking faintly in their sleep. I try the radio. It hisses and clicks, caught in a loop. I'm cut off from everything outside these four walls, a solitary witness pressed flat by the weight of the building's attention. That's when the intercom buzzes. The sound is sharp and wrong, way too loud in the hush. A voice pipes through, not just a voice, but layered voices, like children rehearsing a song underwater. Have you been good this year? Goosebumps chase each other down my arms. The air in the hallway outside grows dense, hot, and then cold again. Through the door's heavy glass, I can see a shadow fall, a smear of darkness that would almost look like a person if a person was too tall, if their arms were too long. I can hear breathing. Heavy, labored, like someone running in the dark. The door handle twitches. Not a twist, not a hand. Just a slow, deliberate turn, over and over, as if it's remembering the movement, not quite making contact. I freeze. Every old story, rule, warning from past guards runs laps inside my mind. What if I'd left? What if I wasn't here right now, watching, witnessing this parade of impossible shapes and ancient, unfinished stories? For the first time, it's sharp as glass. The rule isn't about protecting me or anyone else who sits behind this battered desk. It's not about preventing harm to the building. The rule is about making sure there's always someone inside, someone to see, someone to anchor whatever it is that comes crawling out of the walls on Christmas Eve. Because if nobody witnesses it, maybe it spreads. Maybe it escapes. Maybe it finds a door that matters more. If nobody's here, it goes somewhere else. It can't be allowed that doorway. That's why those old files have no gaps. Why the building and the job and the office feel older than anything they're built atop. The cameras ripple again. Whatever moves in the feeds now stops and seems to peer at me through every lens. The door handle makes one final slow turn. My name, nearly lost in a dozen voices at once, whispers through the air. Last year I hid. This year it found me. The building exhales all at once, and the red emergency bulb above my head flickers out with a soft, final pop. Total black swallows the security office thicker, more tactile than any shadow I've ever felt. Even the glow of monitors shrinks down to pinpricks before vanishing altogether, like someone drawing the curtains on every exit at once. The hum of old wiring, the restless breathing of ancient vents, the thousand background noises of the night shift, all gone. Silence, deep and absolute. And then, with a click like a question mark, the office door unlocks. Not urgently, no frantic rattle, no burst of energy, just that quiet, deliberate shift of metal giving way to the inevitable. I hear the cylinder roll, the bolt sliding back. For a few seconds, I can't move. My hand closes uselessly over the desk edge. My heart pulses in my ears. It would be comical, almost, if not for the certainty that whatever is waiting on the other side doesn't need to force anything. It's already inside. The door pushes itself open. The strip of safety glass offers a sickly frame of the hallway. Pale gray walls, linoleum so sterile it glares even in darkness. And at the very end, under the exit sign's corpse blue glow, a silhouette that shouldn't exist. It's tall, far too tall, its limbs stretched at the joints like a marionette stringed by some lazy god. Shoulders too broad, head cocked at a pain-inducing angle, as if it's curious but doesn't know how to bend like a person should. It stands there for a moment, then begins to move. The lights down the corridor stutter and pop back to life one at a time, forced to illuminate every inch of its approach. Each flicker feels like a punishment. The entity glides, not bothering with a convincing walk, sliding, floating, dragging time and temperature along behind it. Every part of this building, every fluorescent bulb and recycled particle board desk, seems smaller in its presence. When it's halfway down the corridor, I hear my name. Not as I say it, but layered, folded over, remixed in a dozen unfamiliar voices: child, adult, sigh and growl, all tumbling together like an echo from an empty amphitheater. You left your post. There is accusation, but also a sadness, something so old, even resentment won't hold it steady. Suddenly, my head is full of flashes. Not memory, but lightning bursts of recognition and loss. The faces of old guards, a flickering slideshow of name badges in cracked plastic, the eyes of Pete staring upward as snow piles on his lashes. Others frozen mid-step, arms full of old coffee cups, watching the windows with terror blooming across their faces and uniforms. Something stands among them, almost blending in, a too-tall figure with a security vest stretched tight across its impossible chest, wearing badges and hats like trophies, never smiling except when the cameras are just about to click.
A
It steps
rhythmic
closer.
clock-ticking
The
sound
corridor
effect.
shrinks.
Nervous,
My
a
legs
rhythmic
shake,
clock-ticking
refusing to
sound
run,
effect.
but refusing
Nervous,
also
a
to collapse
rhythmic
completely.
clock-ticking
All
sound
at
effect.
once, the cameras in the office snap back to life. Feeds fill the air with cold blue static, too many signals at once. Everything is as it was. The hallway is empty. The exit sign gleams over linoleum polished dull by decades of fear and bleach. I look down at my reflection in the black glass of the monitor. My face stares back, expressionless. And then, as I draw breath, it smiles a fraction too late, a weird, skeletal imitation, before settling back into my features as if nothing happened. They say you can always tell when Christmas comes. The suits go home, the hall's empty, and something older slips the leash. It only comes once a year, and it only needs one of us. I understand that. The empty calm after encounter never lasts. Curiosity creeps in and starts gnawing. Alone in my chair, my thoughts spiral out, always circling the same question. Why here? Why me? Or Marquez? Or Pete? Or all those unnamed security guards? The answers aren't on the computers, because the computers aren't old enough to matter. I start rifling through the old metal cabinet in the back of my office, the one that never locks all the way, stuffed with files nobody's read in decades. The cabinet's bottom drawer jams, as if it's protesting, but I get it open. After passing yellowed incident reports, stale coffee rings, faded ink, chain of custody logs for keys nobody uses anymore, I start to see stories written between the lines. Sealed envelopes with decades-old city letterheads. Accident reports stamped long before my time. Buried between outdated payroll forms is a clipped headline, brittle as autumn leaves. Department store Santa, missing 1978. Last seen, midnight, Christmas Eve. Another, with a photo of a man in a heavy uniform, face blurred by old camera flash. Night watchman dies of exposure on company property. December 25th, 1989. They never closed this building. Not for snowstorms, not for bankruptcy threats. Even the remodel 20 years back just paved over whatever stood before. No renaming, no demolition, just layer on layer, as if something couldn't be allowed to breathe free air. The foundation goes further back than I care to trace, and all the records point to the same unspoken rule: never leave the post unattended on Christmas Eve. It's ritual as much as routine. Someone on guard, someone always scheduled, going back as far as anyone can prove. I start to notice a disturbing rhythm to the dates. Every year, one way or another, someone disappears, dies, or goes missing from their station, always between 3 and 3:15 a.m., the hour most offices should be safe. December 25th, just a hair past midnight, as if the hour itself is hungry. Down the main corridor, under the humming exit sign, the entity returns, not looming this time, but observing. Its shape distorts, drawn taller by the lights and shadows, half-crowned by the glow. It meets my gaze. I feel its attention like a weight made of breath, ancient and deliberate. You may leave, it says, not kindly. The voice isn't singular. All those layered tones, a chorus that could be every guard, every temp, every whisper caught in the dust of these walls. Someone will replace you. My mouth goes dry as I understand. If I flee, if I step past that open threshold, if I dodge the fate laid out for me, then one of the silent watchers will come inside. Or maybe the building will pick at random. A face in the parking lot, a name from an outdated schedule, or God, maybe even someone listening to this now. Rules are rules, but they don't care who suffers. The job just needs coverage, always. The entity's face never resolves, but voices keep flickering through my thoughts. Some plead, some bargain. One, echoing with 1,000 tired shifts behind it, simply states the fact, the rule has to be followed. There must always be one. I look down at my phone, no service, but the clock still advances, clicking its last few seconds. I want to scream, to break every window, to run. But what would come next? Who would step into my place, chosen by proximity, guilt, or pure cosmic accident, so I stay. The office lights cut out again, softer now, gentler. The last red diode in the phone glows, steady as a pilot light. The figures in the lobby dissolve into the gloom, returning to wherever they came from. The exit sign winks, the corridor empties, silence closes around me like a closing hand. If you're listening to this on Christmas Eve, if you find yourself sleepless and alone, if your phone rings at 2:59 a.m., don't answer. If someone appears at your door and tells you a shift needs covering, say no, no matter the cost. Every other night of the year, I can call in sick. Christmas Eve is the only shift I'm not allowed to skip. And now that you know, I hope your job doesn't need coverage.